It's time for another instrument spotlight. Today we'll be diving into some facts in the history of the flute, as well as some general tips on playing. Let's begin with a little history. The Baroque period is when flutes finally became popular. There were flutes earlier, made of wood or reed, but now is when music was specifically written for the flute, and flutes were featured in different ensembles. At this point in time, flutes had one key and several holes. During the 19th century, flute design began to be improved. More keys were added, creating a greater variety of notes. In 1832, Theobald Bohème designed a new flute. His flute was made of silver instead of wood, although he later created wood versions, and he changed a flute from being conical to cylindrical, meaning that the flute was the same size from the head to the end. Later, Albert Cooper adjusted the size and position of the tone holes on a flute. It replaced Bohème's system and was universally adopted, and it's the flute that we use today. Now, putting everything together, there are three main parts of the flute: the head joint, the body, and the foot joint. All of them are connected together, as you can see in this picture over here. Each one has similar specialized parts, and they all have to work together. So if one part has something wrong with it, it may restrict the playing of the entire flute. So let's start at the top. Here's the head joint. This is where the sound starts. Air is blown over the embouchure hole, which is this hole right here. Your lower lip rests on the top of the lip plate right here. And this is where the platform where you play is created. At the end, there's a crown and a cork. The cork is actually inside the flute. It's underneath this little wall, and here's the crown. And it creates a closed end so that air is blocked and you can make sound. The cork is movable so you can adjust your tuning and needs to be replaced regularly. The back wall is also on the lip plate, right around here. It's where you direct your air when playing. It splits your airstream to create the different sounds, and on each flute it's a little bit different because all flutes are made to be unique. Next we have the body of the flute. In the body there are tone holes. Tone holes are all of these little spots right here that go all along the flute. They are underneath the keys, and the keys, when they are pressed, you use only one finger at a time, and they cover the tone holes completely. You can have open keys or closed keys. Some open keys are right here, and then some closed keys are the ones that aren't as shiny. There are pads on the underside of each key that create an airtight seal over the tone holes when they're pressed. Now, rods and springs help everything move, and they keep everything held together. The rods are these long looking structures right here that go up the side of the flute. They hold the keys in place. If a rod is loose, you probably have a loose key as well. The springs are these little tiny needle-like structures that run along here, and they're only every once in a while. They're not as big as the rods. They create the tension needed to move the different keys. And each spring rests against a little tiny post, so if one slips off its post, some keys might not work right and certain notes won't play. When different keys are pressed, they cover the different tone holes. The different finger combinations result in different notes because different amounts of air are allowed to escape the body of the flute. The air is stopped in certain places, and in others it's not. So if you were to press a couple fingers on your left hand and a couple fingers on your right hand in different ways, it's going to make a different note sound. Next we have the foot joint. There are different types of foot joints for different flute levels. You can have a student flute, an intermediate flute, or an advanced, or some people call it a professional flute. Student models are generally simpler and don't have as many keys as the more advanced flutes. You can have a C foot or a B foot. The picture here is of a B foot. A C foot has one fewer keys on the end, so this would not be on a C foot, but this is on a B foot, which also corresponds with this key. And a C foot would also not have this little key right here called the gizmo key. A gizmo key is often found on intermediate or advanced flutes with B foots. It allows higher notes to be played easier, and many people favor them, including myself. The different foots also make flutes sound different. They can change the tone stability and how different notes respond. And it doesn't matter which one you choose, it's all about personal preference. Now that we've learned the parts of the flute, we have to learn how to take care of your flute. It's really important that you take proper care and really good care of your flute. After each use, make sure you take all three parts apart and swab it out. Use a soft cloth free from chemicals or polishers to swab the inside. This cleans out the moisture so your pads aren't harmed after you play. A polishing cloth may be used on the outside only. Do not drop your flute. It might sound silly, but dropping it can really cause some serious damage. A small drop might seem harmless, but small dents can be problematic later, and you might have damaged something that you didn't even know you damaged. Make sure you keep your flute away from moisture, dryness, and extreme temperatures. Different temperatures cause the cork to move, making your flute out of tune, and it won't sound good. Moisture and dryness will ruin the pads and also cause some keys not to work as well. If too much moisture gets on your pads, they might grow mold or rot, meaning they need to be replaced, which is really, really expensive. So if your flute gets wet, make sure you air it out until it's dry. Don't put it in its case. Be gentle with your flute. Aside from dropping it, make sure you don't grip the keys too hard when you're putting your flute together or just holding onto it or taking it apart. Keys are really fragile and they can bend out of place easy, and if they bend out of place, you need to fix them because leaks have been created. So just be gentle and you won't have to pay as much for repairs later. And most importantly, be nice to your lips. Your lips help you play your instrument and they're needed to play your instrument, so take good care of them. If your lips are chapped or too dry, playing becomes hard, so make sure you use chapstick with a lot of moisturizers. Aside from having good care of your flute, make sure your posture is correct as well. Our fingers need to stay curved. Having flat fingers creates problems if you have an open hold flute, especially because your finger will cover the wrong part of the hole, or maybe not even all of the hole, and that will change the sound of your flute. Curved fingers also help you play faster. Stand with your feet apart. This gives you balance when you play standing up, and it also allows for your upper body to be more open. Relax. Everyone gets nervous, including myself. If you learn relaxation techniques, it can help you have more confidence, better sound, and better breath support. Make sure your upper body faces your music stand, whether you're sitting down or standing up. This allows for your lungs to expand more so you can have better breathing. Your embouchure kind of goes along with your posture, but having a good embouchure is essential for having a good sound. You have to have a relaxed lower lip that's kind of pouted, and your top lip is tighter, which creates a small hole between your lips called your aperture, and that is where your air goes through. You have to learn to focus your air to create a better tone. Having a good tone and focused air helps you play certain notes better and also more in tune. It can help you change dynamics and bend pitches and do a lot of different technique stuff. Also, you have to learn how to have good breathing. Having good breath support helps your sound immensely. You have to learn to breathe from really deep inside, expanding your lungs while keeping your shoulders down. You want to learn to let your lungs come out, your stomach come out, and keep your shoulders down so that way you can keep your lungs expanding with more air. Practice controlled breathing. By learning controlled breathing techniques, you can train your lungs to play for longer. Keep your throat relaxed and open. Your throat needs to be open in order for air to pass through it, so by staying relaxed, you can breathe easier. Also open your mouth when breathing. It allows for more air to enter your body, and it helps you keep your embouchure when playing. Your fingers are also very important. Don't slam them on the keys. That can cause damage like we talked about earlier, and if your keys are aligned correctly, you shouldn't need to press too hard anyway. Work on building up finger dexterity. Your fingers will learn the different notes, so you don't have to look them up as much, and it also helps with muscle memory. Muscle memory allows for faster playing and allows your body to remember the notes easier, and it makes harder passages easier. Learn alternate fingerings as well. Playing can be easier, especially if you have a tough passage that's really quick or just really hard in general, and you need to learn a different fingering to make changing between notes easier. Sometimes alternate fingerings can also be more in tune or sound better. Some different techniques that you can use while playing are vibrato, dynamics, double tonguing, and air pockets. Vibrato is a slight fluctuation in pitch that kind of sounds like waves. It can create warmth in the sound, and depending on the type of music you're playing, you want your vibrato to be slow or fast. Dynamics are the louds and softs in music. Such contrast can be created by changing the amount of air you use when you play. It's important to learn to control your dynamics, especially if you're playing in a band or ensemble, or even as a soloist. Double tonguing is used in fast passages, when you have shorter notes generally, but sometimes it can be for longer notes too. You work with a tuku sound, and you want to start slow to help your fingers move with your tongue. Sometimes double tonguing can take a long time to master, so just keep working on it if you're having trouble. Air pockets can help change the tone and tune of your pitch, and you do this by opening your back of your mouth, so creating more space in between your cheeks and in your teeth, and then actually putting air so your cheeks will expand. Now that you've learned some things about the flute, some people you can listen to are James Galway, and he is an Irish man, and he is very famous for the classic music that he plays on his flute. William Kincaid. William Kincaid is a member of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and he's also the father of the American School of Flute Playing. Frederick Cluau. He wrote many, many flute works back in his time, and he's called the Beethoven of flute. And then Laurel Zucker, who's pictured here. She's a flute professor and performs worldwide. And these aren't the only people to listen to. They're just some people that I listen to and perform. And you can listen to several other people, but find someone that you enjoy listening to and someone that you listen to that can possibly help you improve your playing. Now, some general performance advice. Be confident, even if you're making mistakes. Don't let your nerves get the best of you. And if you are nervous, give your friends and family a little mini concert. It can help you practice and can give you more confidence when you do play. Make sure you tune really carefully before you go out and perform or before you play for your friends, but make sure you've warmed up properly before you tune. Listen to yourself when you're playing so you can adjust your tuning or style, especially when you're playing with others. And make sure you dress comfortably. Be sure that you can move around and breathe really nicely, but you still want to look nice. Now, do you want to get better? I'm sure all of you do. So the first tip is to practice. You have to practice lots and lots and lots, probably more than you think. It's how you reinforce what you've learned and how you get better at what you're not good at. Take lessons. A lot of people take lessons during the school year and don't think about taking lessons over the summer. But taking lessons over the summer can help you reinforce what you learned during the school year and actually can give you a step up for during the next year. And then go and practice some more. Sometimes it's hard to find time to practice, but you still have to practice. Practice makes perfect. So find a place where you feel comfortable practicing, but try to change it up sometimes. Also, you can attend clinics and master classes. Often these are taught by professionals or professors at different universities. If you go to the right ones, there could be small numbers, and you might even get one-on-one time. I highly, highly recommend going to those. So those were some quick tips on the flute. So hopefully you learned something new, and hopefully you learned something that you can apply to your own individual instruments. But remember to save your notes, for there will be a quiz on all of the instruments later in the year. But happy playing!